Hey, all right, all right, all right. It's not Saturday and it's not New York, but we are live. And I know you've been missing my smiling face. It's been about 6 months since I've done anything like this, back in the spring of 2018. And I'm live for a couple of different reasons, but I'll explain that as we go along. I'm kind of doing a little bit of a Jekyll and Hyde type of experiment here. And so that's what this is all about. I'll explain this as we go. It's a little bit scary for me to do this, and that's kind of part of the process. And there's a declaration that's going along with this that is also scary because now I'm going to be accountable to it. So, what I'm doing is I'm doing a 90 days to a life well spent. It's the last quarter of 2018, and today marks the beginning of that 3 month journey. And so, basically, what it is I want you to consider, what if we converted our dreams into plans and our plans into actionable steps that would actually accomplish those dreams. Um, if you're like me, you've got a lot of ideas floating around up here that are unfulfilled and kind of chasing shadows is really what it boils down to. And so um, what I think that also equates to is that if you have enough resolve and if you have enough commitment and courage to step into that dream and step into those plans to actually pursue them and have the courage to make it happen, then you can move in that direction in that process. And if you don't, then you kind of settle back into average and mediocre, which is kind of what my track record has been. And it's because I guess I just haven't been willing to work for it. And I think that's probably the key to it, is that, not haven't been willing to step up to what it takes to pursue those lofty dreams. And, staying up late, working hard, learning everything I possibly can, doing whatever I can with whatever I've got and wherever I am, and making every effort to make the right associations so I get the right influences in my life. Those types of things take a lot of effort. They're very simple, but they take a lot of time and effort. And um, so instead, what I've done, and I think what we tend to do, is we stay stuck. We stay stuck in a state of dreaming about the promise of our future instead of actually going out and pursuing it, and doing anything with consistency and an intensity that brings it to fruition. So, and that's where average and mediocre kind of take over, and those become your default settings, and they have been for me. And so, and those two things, average and mediocre, they always rush in to fill the void when greatness steps out, right? When greatness steps out, then average and mediocre show up to fill the void. And it's been said that the only thing for evil to triumph, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing, right? And so that's kind of what this is about. It's a lack of intensity, a lack of purpose. It's a lack of disciplined activity that kind of keeps average and mediocre running the show. And so imagine how it would be if you made a commitment to not be average and mediocre, to instead be your true self, your greatest self, and to put into action all those things about what you are and where you are and what you have right now, without regard to what you don't have, without regard to all of the reasons and excuses you might be able to come up with, and rationales and justifications and evidence that you create about why you don't do what you know you could do or should do, right? Imagine what would make your decisions, what it would be like if you made your decisions from the greatest version of yourself instead of from your average and mediocre self, right? A friend of mine, Chris, has kind of inspired me about this. I'm much less eloquent and able to kind of flow with this as he is, and that's why I have notes. But he talks about these two versions of yourself that kind of live between your ears here, the average mediocre self and the true version of yourself, your greatest self, right? And which one do you listen to the most? And the life that you live, the product of your life, is a fundamental and a cumulative effort that is based on the predominant one that you listen to. And I can look back on my life and my experiences and tell you that the predominant one I've been listening to is average and mediocre. And I'm committed to changing that and start listening to the true version of myself, the greatest version of myself, the one that tells me I'm better than that, right? And the one that has me face fear with courage instead of cowering from it. And so Imagine what it would be like if you made your decisions from the greatest version of yourself instead of the average mediocre version of yourself. And you started listening to that side of the argument. Okay. If you gave 100% to your jobs, to your family, to what your purpose in life is. Okay. If you started reading the books and replacing your errors with discipline and associating with people who are going to move you in the right direction, encourage you, and be inspirational to you about that. And what if starting right now, you converted your dreams into your plans and your plans into actionable steps that you followed through with and you actually pursued and tracked and measured and chased down? What an incredible difference that would make, right? In no time at all, you would have mediocrity and average on the run, and greatness would rush in to take its place where it rightfully belongs, right? What kind of a difference and what kind of an impact would you make if you were able to do that? Well, that's what I'm committing to. And so the key question for this series is, how would your life change? How would your life change if you decided to commit to the best version of yourself in the next 90 days, October, November, December 2018, right? How would your life change? Well, I'm taking on this challenge, and it's kind of a follow-on to what I did in the spring, but it's an effort to squeeze a little bit more out of my life and to kind of get moving in life, right? I feel like I've been just kind of, holding pattern, waiting to get started because I'm preparing, and I ended up in this perpetual state of preparing. Well, I'm done preparing, and I'm moving on, and whatever that looks like is what it's going to look like, and you can be the judge of it at the end of this time. But I'm going to take this challenge, and I intend to maximize the impact by stretching for my capacity and trying to reach for my potential. And I invite you to join me in the challenge. If you'd like to, you can message me, and then we can get started together. It'd be a good thing for us to walk that journey together and help encourage each other and hold each other accountable, right? See, I believe there's a tremendous amount of value that can be gleaned by looking back in history, and one of the things I like to do is collect quotes. And so here's one that is from Marcus Tullius Cicero. He was a Roman philosopher, a Roman statesman way back in the day. And what he says is, the best armor of old age is a well-spent life preceding it, a life employed in the pursuit of useful knowledge, in honorable actions, in the practice of virtue, in which he who labors from his youth to improve himself will in age reap the happiest fruits of them, not only because these never leave a man, not even in the extremest old age, but because a conscience bearing witness that our life was well spent, together with the remembrance of past good actions, yields an unspeakable comfort to the soul, right? And so that speaks loudly to me about what my life is going to look like when I'm looking back on it. And really, I think about that, and it seems so far out there because I don't know how long I'm going to live, but the average lifespan somewhere up around 75, 80 years old. And I'm getting closer to that every day, of course. But if I just look at the next 90 days and I have that same mindset and that same perspective about at the end of this 90 days, at the end of December 2018, I want to look back on October, November, and December, and I want to be able to say that I spent that time well, right? So this captures the essence of this 90-day effort, this quote, and it speaks about stretching yourself and reaching for your capacity. That's what I'm committing myself to. It speaks to your potential and your ability to facilitate your own growth to enhance your experience in life. All right. That's kind of what it is. This is about living instead of existing. I've proven to myself many, many times that pursuing happiness and other things like it doesn't produce it. And if anything, it eludes you. It's like chasing your own shadow. And I've discovered that it's attainable by focusing on something other than happiness. And it's counterintuitive, it's kind of mind-boggling, but at the same time, once I started to understand it, I began to see that it's remarkably simple and that it really works. And so to summarize what I'm up to, the whole design of this 90-day effort is to demonstrate what it looks like when average and mediocre decide and choose to live into greatness instead. And that's what I would invite you to join me with. So at the end of this year, you can let me know what that looks like for me. And I hope to have somebody that will join me in this, and we can kind of compare notes, and we can celebrate at the end of this 90-day period and leapfrog from there to the next 90-day period and keep this snowball rolling. if you want to revisit this video, you should be able to check it out on my blog. I'm going to try to get it set up there, and that's at my website, 360degreeresults.com, 360degreeresults.com. There's going to be a complete history of these videos there, and that's it for today. So the next time you see my smiling face, it'll be on the next round, which should be tomorrow. And here's to us and those like us living a life well spent. And so it's time to get your game face on, because game on. See ya.